Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals public hearings for Monday, March 30th, 2020. Things are going to be a little different tonight. As a preliminary matter, I am Ron Rosen, Chairman of the ZBA. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Paul George?
Here.
Lisa Cassette? Lisa Cassette? Okay. Peter Mulcahy?
Here.
And Lisa's here, found it.
Okay. Mary Beth Lynch?
I'm here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Ernie Cahill?
Here.
Kristen Ruppolo?
Here.
The double meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations in the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals is convening by Google Hangouts as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and that take care not to screen share your computer unless asked by the chairman or the staff person. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. The ground rules, we are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meetings. I will introduce each board member or staff meeting, which I've done, who has the lead role for this particular item, and the applicant for an appeal or special permit. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Remember that unless a document is being shared, your camera feed is triggered by your speaking or background noise. Remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For others in attendance that are expected to present, please hold until your name is called to present. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Remember that unless a document is being shared, your camera feed is triggered by your speaking or background noise. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. After your presentation, members of the board will be given the opportunity to ask questions. Once we are done, I will open it up to the public if anyone else has any questions. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair. We need to be a little bit more strict in our rules tonight, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. First order of business is signing bills. There's a $98 Worcester Telegram and Gazette for the February 24th, 2020 legal notices. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve such bills?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
And I also consent. Our first appeal, hang on one second. The first appeal is to hear the appeal of Waterview Realty Trust, Russell C. D. Doming, trustee, Post Office Box 749, Boylston, Mass. For a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 4-B to demolish an existing non-conforming two-family dwelling and reconstruct a two-family dwelling upon property located at 51-53 Bayview Drive in a Residence B2 district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 57, Plot 00100. Is the applicant here?
Mr. Chairman Rosen, this is Richard Ricker. And hi, this is Richard Ricker. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
you're on.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I represent the applicant and Mr. DeDoming in this application. This is a request for a special permit, as the chair read, to demolish an existing two-family dwelling and to rebuild on the site another two-family dwelling. If you can bear with me, I will bring up a plan. Can you see that plan?
No.
Well, it worked last time. See here. Here we are. I'm going to give it one more try, and if I don't get it up.
There it goes. Part of
Okay.
it.
All right, so what you're looking at here is the proposed plot plan for the new dwelling. And it is overlaid on the hatched marked outline of the existing dwelling. You can tell the existing dwellings. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, you can see the lines of the existing dwelling here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a garage up here and the dwellings down here. This is not, we're not presenting any new nonconformities. This is utilizing the same setback issues that the present structure has. The present structure that is there is quite old, and the condition is such that repair is not the best alternative. Therefore, their request to demolish it and replace it as shown on this plan. And if I could, I'll bring up the elevations to show you what. And did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, this is what the structure would look like from the street. I understand from my clients that they did walk the neighborhood and they spoke with most of their abutters. And the one abutter that they didn't speak to, they left plans there with a letter to ask them to contact them if there was any questions. They have not heard from that particular abutter. I would suggest to you that this structure, this new house would be, this new duplex would be a market improvement to that property and therefore to the neighborhood. There would be, as noted in the requirements noted by the town planner's correspondence to you, I would suggest there would be no nuisance by virtue of noise, smoke, traffic, or otherwise. I want to emphasize that the actual building itself could change a little bit as we go forward through the planning process, because conservation and planning boards still have to review this. They still have to go through those processes. So there could be some changes as a result of those meetings. I also am told by my clients that they have changed the roof lines a little bit in order to make the roof a little bit lower so that they've reduced the height of the house. But I would expect that there would be some minor changes like that as you go along through this process. I am aware that planning board does sometimes request minor changes to plans like this. And with that, if you have any questions,
Yes, so this is a special permit, not a variance,
that's correct.
and no changes to the existing setbacks.
That, well, the setbacks are changing a little bit. They do change a little bit. You can see from the plan. This proposed deck is down here, and that is 30 some odd feet, 34 yards, 34-foot setback, rear setback. It is a required 50-foot setback from the lake. You already have, you get this deck here as well. That's
Right.
further out, believe it or not. You've got this existing. And so there are some adjustment of the same setback issues that are already there. It's actually improving the front yard setback
Right.
by bringing the structures further back onto the lot from than the existing garage.
Okay. Mr. George, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Ms. Cossette, do you have any questions?
I just want to confirm the setbacks again. Mr. Ricker, if you could use the mouse a little bit, maybe while I'm talking.
Okay.
So it looks to me after reading the application and looking at this plot plan that the proposed plan is less non-conforming on 3 of the setbacks and maybe a little bit more non-conforming on 1 of them. But for the most part, they're all improved. The 3 of the 4 are much improved.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And could you point out where I think one of the setbacks is
Right here.
going from 34 to maybe 30 and a half. Okay.
I'm having a hard time reading the plan, so let me look at. The garage setback is changing from 10 feet to 21.1.
Which is good. Yeah, improved.
The other garage is at 20.2, but it overall is an improvement. On the left-hand side, you'll see that the setback is 25.5 and the new setback is 30.5.
Also better. Yep.
Yep. And on the right-hand side of the property, it meets the setback line.
Okay.
And on the lake side, it goes slightly towards the lake, but it's just the proposed deck.
Okay, that's the one. Okay, and that is on the lakeside. So thank you.
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Mulcahy, any questions?
Yes, can you talk a little bit about the difference in the sort of living area? Just looking at the plan that you have up here, it appears that the existing building isn't particularly large, even though it's a 2-family. And I think, one of the things that we need to think about for a special permit is the level of traffic and the sort of increased density. I'm curious as to how many more people you would expect to occupy the 2 units
Well,
under the proposed plan as opposed to the existing structure.
Okay, I think my clients may have called in, but if they haven't, I can tell you that my understanding is that they are going to be occupying the property themselves. It's the 2 older gentlemen and I presume their wives. So this will be their home. The 2 partners of this Waterview Realty Trust. So yes, it is going from a smaller 2-family to somewhat larger, very similar to other properties in the neighborhood. I did take a ride down there and went around the neighborhood looking at the various properties that have been rebuilt there. And I would suggest to you respectfully, Mr. Mulcahy, that this is in keeping with the newer houses that have been rebuilt down there. But again, if Bob Haddon is on the line, maybe he could speak up. I thought that Bob Haddon or Russ Doming were going to try to dial in.
Okay.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. But they will use this for their own residents. I don't think either of them has any children in their homes, so this would be somewhat of a change for them going from single family to the duplex for each of them.
Right. Do you know anything in terms of number of bedrooms, or I also just, I'm having
Yeah,
a
I
hard
think
time reading the square footage. I can see that it's there on your plan. I just can't read it.
Okay. Let me open up my plan here. Bear with me and I'll get the floor plans up. So you can see this room is 18 by 16. This room, that's likely, I would say, it looks like it has a bath. So I would assume that's a bedroom.
We might have it here in the packet. I was just looking for
Yes.
the sort of square footage, the gross square footage. I'm tilting because it's rotated on my screen.
Oh, geez.
I was wondering.
All right. Let's see
It
what-
looks like it's 3,130 for each unit, and there's 2 units. Is that right? Square feet
It's 2 stories.
versus a total area of 42. So it's about 30% larger.
I would say that that's correct.
I believe under 50% larger, it's still a special permit, does not need a variance.
That is correct.
Okay.
Ms. Lynch, any questions?
Nope, I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Cahill, has anyone in the public voiced a desire to speak?
Mr. Chairman, this is Patty Sheehan. I'd like to just make a comment.
Yes,
So I would just like the board, when you discuss this project, to just take a look at how this duplex structure is connected. When you saw the elevation, it's only connected by a kind of like a roof cover overhang connecting the 2 structures. They do not share a common wall at all. So essentially, it's 2 single-family dwellings connected by just a roof covering between the units. So I'd just like you to discuss that when you go ahead and make a decision.
I guess my question is that, how is that a determining factor? Is it,
It isn't a determining factor. It is acceptable under our bylaws at this stage. I know that it was a discussion in the past about it, but I know of other properties in town where this has been used before in the same fashion. I think, Patty, you know what I'm talking about.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I'm sorry I'm going out of order, but to that
Okay.
point, it's okay. To that point, I can see a safety concern if the smoke detectors, let's say, aren't connected between the 2 properties because they are very close. So if maybe Ms. Sheehan can speak to that.
Right, so this, under the building code, so this structure doesn't have any shared space whatsoever, so the smoke alarms will not have to be interconnected in any way. In the definition of a 2-family in the bylaw, this does meet the definition. It's just unusual how little it is connected. So I just thought there would be some discussion of that when you review, before you take your vote.
okay.
And I can tell you that obviously we wouldn't want you to deny the request for a special permit based on that one factor. So if it is your collective decision on the part of the board to tell us to join them join the 2 sides with a common wall, then we will do that for the sake of the special permit. It's important to try to get through this process, as you can well imagine.
I guess, I'm sorry, I guess my question is, if the bylaw doesn't, if it meets the definition of a 2-family based on how the bylaw currently reads,
It does.
then I'm not sure what we're opining on.
Well, I would hope that you wouldn't deny it. What I-
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, go ahead, Peter.
I was just going to ask, so the quality of the plan that that I have here isn't great, and so I just want to clarify: is it literally just a roof? Like it's not even? I've seen some around town that are connected with like a sort of shed in the middle. It's just a roof, and there's open air in between them otherwise.
There is, yes, if I could, Mr. Chairman, yes, it is a roof. It was my understanding that the foundations are connected as well.
So Mr. Chairman, the foundations, they're not connected because there's nothing structurally to support between them. But what a concern may be to just think about this type of structure in the future is that if they decide to build this as shown with just the roof overhang connecting the two structures, and then decide to take down the roof overhang in the future, then we have two single families on a lot, and so that little roof overhang plays a big role in this plan. So that's all I'm just asking to have considered.
But wouldn't that be a violation of the special permit? If they were to, it's not a special permit to allow two single-family houses. So if the roof overhang was eliminated, would that not be a violation of just
Right.
of the zoning bylaw?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I would say that you're right. If they removed that, it would be a violation now having two single-family homes. But that's why I just wanted to note that discussion in the decision, so that if something like that did happen in the future, then I could go back to the decision for to bring the owner's attention to that.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
sure.
So I guess I'm just sort of seeing how these look around town. The shed always seemed like a little bit of a kind of like a fig leaf about the fact that this is really a two-family dwelling. But if it's really just a roof and no other common structure whatsoever, doesn't that seem like it's almost sort of against the sort of purpose of the bylaw or the spirit of the bylaw? I mean, isn't this really just two single-family homes that are less than 10 feet apart from another? I mean, is that really what the bylaw meant to allow by its definition?
Bernie?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so we had this discussion. Hi, Bernie Kale, the town planner. We had this discussion about 2 years ago and last year as well, when we changed the requirement for two-family duplexes, the side-by-side duplexes. I can quickly read it out to you now, but simply put, side-by-side duplexes may be allowed by special permit from the planning board. And it says here, I'm going to read directly from the zoning bylaw that says, where the two units do or do not share a common wall abutting habitable space, provided the two units are at minimum connected structurally and continuously by a shared foundation, walls, and roof. So yes, they do need to be connected continuously by a shared foundation, walls, and roof.
And or?
It says here, and continuously by a shared. So I'll read it again. It says, the planning board may allow by special permit a side-by-side two-family dwelling where the two units do or do not share a common wall abutting habitable space, provided the two units are at minimum connected structurally and continuously by a shared foundation, walls, and roof. So they do need to share a, it says provided that, right? The two units are at minimum connected by shared foundation, walls, and roof. So they will need to have a shared foundation, wall, and roof. What it does say is that they don't have to be habitable spaces. So in other words, two garages could be connected. It doesn't have to be two living rooms.
Got it.
Does that make sense to everyone?
So Bernie, could I ask you, does that mean that they could close this space in?
I will defer to Patty on that, only because she'll understand structurally how that would work, connecting the two foundations.
Sure, if I could comment on that, Mr. Chairman. So
Sure. Go ahead.
as the plan exists right now, a shared foundation is not required at all because the overhang is structurally supported by each of the exterior walls on each of the separate dwelling units. So if it were enclosed, if it was a space that was enclosed, such as a shed or something else that was suggested before, having additional walls underneath that roof overhang would require a foundation supported down to the frost line, and then it would be considered a shared foundation. But as it is right now, there's no shared foundation required.
Now, I thought, Bernie, excuse me, Bernie, when you read your definition, it said shared foundations, walls, and roof, or roof, walls, and foundation. It wasn't or foundation, correct?
That's correct. That's my reading of the bylaw as it's written, that they do not have to share a common wall abutting habitable space.
Right, but
Provided-
it does sound, but to me, it
provided-
sounds like, I'm sorry, it sounds like they have to share a foundation, though.
Yes.
And that's why,
This doesn't, there's not it's two separate foundations with earth in between.
Correct. That's how it looks, yeah.
and this is the reason, if I could, Mr. Chairman, this is the reason why I said in my initial discussion that I expect some changes to be made, or probably some changes we can expect as it works its way through the planning board process as well. But again, I wouldn't want this issue to hold up the.
No, yeah, I get that. My biggest concern is, yeah, basically the way I see this is it's a two-family for, a 2-unit for a 2-unit. So clearly it meets the definition of a special permit, and I don't see any density issues. I don't see any problems that way. But I'm getting hung up on, does it have to have a shared foundation? If it does, then something needs to be done about that.
Well, and if it does, then I would respectfully suggest that you could say that if the bylaws and the building code and the planning board require a joining of the foundations, that you could make that a part of your decision.
Okay, so you're okay with that as a condition?
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Anyone else have anything to add to this conversation? Is anyone, a non-member, anyone who's a citizen, wish to have any questions or comments on this? Okay, there being no further questions or comments, we will take this under advisement and you'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay. Board, anyone, I want to go right to votes after each hearing, just to eliminate some of the phone lines if necessary. Does anyone have any comments, questions, discussion before we vote?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to propose approving this with the connecting foundation
As a condition?
as a condition.
Okay.
Second,
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? I vote affirmative. Mr. George,
Affirmative.
Ms. Cassette,
affirmative.
Mr. Mulcahy,
Affirmative.
Ms. Lynch.
Affirmative.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of the town of Shrewsbury, 100 Maple Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass. For modification to the May 30, 2017 special permit to the town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under section 6, table 1, to allow a seasonal farmers market in Residence A district upon property located at 100 Maple Ave. The subject premises on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 21, Plot 101-001. Who would be representing the town?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm in a butter, so I will have to recuse myself from this hearing.
Okay, Mr. Amenti, are you here?
I am.
Okay, we now have a full board. Is the applicant here?
I am the applicant and I am here. This is Melissa Hollenbeck.
Okay, you want to tell us what's going on?
Well, basically, we would like to move from the back parking lot near the senior center more to a front visible location to be visible from the road. We've had a number of vendors not return because they felt that the lack of visibility was hurting their sales. If you attend any farmer market programs or training, that visibility is one of the key factors with a farmer's market, because a lot of the traffic and sales are driven by people just driving by. So we thank the town for allowing us to have the back spot, but the front spot would provide us with more visibility. And I also think it would also free up some of the parking issues that kind of get a little tight there sometimes. So I think it would work out well overall. And we have met with the police department and the fire department, and they've weighed in on their thoughts about traffic flow and signage, things like they'd rather not have patrons part of the police station, so we provide signage with that. I believe you all have the maps that the vehicles will only be able to enter from the, I'm really bad at directions, from the east side, and they'd be exiting from the west side near the police station. We would not be on the front lawn. It would be the small area in between the front lawn and the sidewalk of Town Hall. The area would be blocked off, and we would be having the configuration of 7 10 by 10 tents with a 12-foot emergency break in between.
So,
Mr. Chairman, if you will, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I will present the plot plan now, so people at home can take a look.
Oh, thank you.
Can you see that, Mr. Chairman?
yes, it's loaded. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So Missy, you can continue speaking if you wish.
Okay. Little squares with the yellow there would be the tents. Limited would be by 21. And then the area in front would be for patrons to walk and to shop. At this point, I will be perfectly honest with you with the whole pandemic. There's discussion about things that would change. But for right now, we're pretending everything's normal, and this is how the market layout would be. The other thing is nothing else really would be changing as far as times and the days. The one exclusion is that we did remove music. In the previous application, no music was allowed, but we talked with the town and they felt that if it was quiet background type music, that should be okay. And also most of our musicians, when we are able to get them, they have paying full-time day jobs, so they usually can't get there till 4:30 or 5 anyway. So that would not be interfering with Town Hall.
Okay. How many vendors, what's the most you had in the back?
In the back, it was probably about 20.
Okay, so you're not changing your capacity?
No.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Mr. George?
I'm all set.
Ms. Cassette?
No, I like it.
Mr. Mulcahy? I'm sorry, Ms. Lynch.
No, I want to commend Mrs. Hollenbach. I think it's a great plan. I think it'll work out well.
And Mr. Armenti?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there anyone in attendance that has notified us that they wish to speak on this matter? Mr. Cahill, did anyone notify you?
No, I had no notifications for this applicant.
Okay, there have been no further questions or comments. We will take it under advisement and you'll be notified of our decision.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any discussion to the board?
I would say I think it's a positive step forward, and I agree that the being able to see it from the street is going to be very advantageous. So they have my support.
Okay, can I get a motion, Mr. George?
Move to approve?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
By order, Mr. Jordan,
Aye.
Ms. Cassette,
Aye.
Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
Mr. Clemente,
Aye.
and I also vote in favor. Motion passes unanimously. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Michelle Mello, 95 Worthington Ave, Shrewsbury, Mass, for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 6, Table 1, to expand an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 95 Worthington Avenue. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 39, Plot 221001. Is the applicant here? Ms. Mello?
Here.
Okay, you want to tell us what you're going to be doing, please?
Can we just have you ask if Mr. Garcia is also present? He's actually the contractor. He was supposed to be here to present.
Oh, is Mr. Garcia here? Nope.
Okay. My name's Dan.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Dan Cronin. I also own the property here at 95 Worthington. Mr. Garcia was going to present for us. However, I take it he's not here. We're just looking for the special permit in order to add a bathroom and then to also replace the deck that's on the property.
Okay, are you making any structural changes to the property?
So we will be adding approximate 8x6 addition on the north side of the house. I know the setback is only 3.7 feet at this time. We're not going to change that. So we're not going to improve the setback. However, we're not going to make it any worse.
Okay. Bear with me 1 second.
Mr. Chairman, I will share the plans at this time. with
Okay,
the public.
yeah, that's what I was looking for. Go ahead.
So that is the existing house. The deck, from my understanding, is going to be a like-for-like replacement to the same dimensions. And the addition is going to be where you can see the hand here in the corner over a single-story piece that exists today. It's going to be built above it.
Okay. So it's not changing the footprint and it's not changing any of the setbacks?
That is correct.
Okay. In order, anyone have any questions? Mr. George?
No questions at this time.
Ms. Cassette?
So I just want to confirm the only reason this applicant needs to come before us is because they have an existing non-conforming structure, but they're doing nothing to make it more non-conforming, so it's fine.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mulcahy?
Nothing for me.
Ms. Lynch?
Nope, no issues or questions from me.
Okay, is there anyone that has called in or anyone in attendance that wishes to speak on this matter?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Stephen Boulay, 6 Redland Street.
Yes.
I'm not in opposition of this. The only question I have is what are the structural materials going to be on the additional part that's being built?
Applicant, will they match what's existing?
This siding is just going to be vinyl siding as opposed to the asbestos siding that we have now.
Are you just, is it just going to be siding the one area or is it going to be the whole face?
Just the addition.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, one follow-up, please.
yes, sure.
So the siding, the color is going to match. I mean, I'm just curious on the coloring. It's going to be the same?
That's correct. It'll all be white as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to the building.
Okay,
Thank you.
Is anyone else phoning in or hangouts in that wishes to be heard on this matter? Mr. Cahill, are you aware of anyone else that wanted to speak on this matter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I did not receive any comments from members of the public regarding this matter.
Okay, can I get a motion? Mr. George,
Move to approve?
can I get a second? Ms. Cassette?
Second.
All in favor, Mr. George,
Aye.
Ms. Cassette,
Aye.
Mr. Mulcahy,
Aye.
Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. The motion passes unanimously. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Taylor Janulowitz, 38 Sadler Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 1, to expand an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 38 Sadler Avenue. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 32, Plot 146000. Is Ms. Janulowitz here?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can. You want to give us a
Okay.
little background on what you're doing, please?
So we're just gonna reframe my existing roof and add a dormer to the back side of the roof to prepare for future renovations for a second floor.
Okay, so the only issue is that you're basically bumping out for a dormer?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Cahill?
Oh, sorry. Let me present the plans. Hold on.
Yeah. Please.
So I will show you. Okay, you should be looking at the elevation plans.
Yep.
Okay, so you can see on the, let me go up a little bit. You can see on the left-hand side, existing today, there are two dormers present. On the right-hand side, the idea is to replace those two dormers with a single dormer, essentially putting those two dormers together. And then as we scroll down further, you can see on the right-hand side is the bump out in the roof.
Right.
And the plot plan looks like this, but there are no changes proposed to the footprint of the house.
Okay. And they're not even increasing the nonconformity, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. George?
No questions at this time.
Ms. Cassette?
None for me either.
Mr. Mulcahy?
None for me.
Ms. Lynch?
Thank you.
Does anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Mr. Cahill, are you aware of anyone that expressed an interest?
I had a couple calls expressing interest, but no opposition. It was just curious about what was being proposed.
Okay. Can I get a motion, Mr. George?
Uh-oh,
Did we lose Mr. George?
maybe. We'll need to wait for him, I guess,
Yeah.
to rejoin.
Okay,
Here he
Mr. George.
Mhm.
Paul, we can't hear you or see you.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion.
Move to approve?
Ms. Cassette?
Second.
All in favor? Mr. George?
Aye.
Ms. Cassette?
Aye.
Mr. Mulcahy?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Our next hearing is to hear the appeal of Deborah Harrington, Harrington Realty LLC, 34 Hancock Hill Drive, Worcester, Mass. For a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 2, rear yard setback to construct a single-family dwelling 20 feet from the rear property line in the Residence A District upon property located at 31 Morningside Drive. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 11, Plot 014049. Is Ms. Harrington here?
I am here, thank you.
Okay, so you want to tell us what you're going to be doing, please? What you
Okay,
propose to
so
do.
this particular lot has utility easements on it, and it's a narrow lot. We are looking to get relief of 20 feet from one lot line, being the rear lot line, and apply to an adjacent lot line, which is now the side lot line. So I also, just to illustrate the land, the what's illustrated as the rear lot line right now is a very steep hill. So to adjust the lot lines would create a better topography for the homeowner's yard. And that being said, I have Michael Zervas on the phone here, and he prepared this magnificent report for me, and he can take all your questions on behalf of me, if that's okay.
It's okay. Mr. George,
Yeah,
any questions?
not at this time.
Okay.
Okay, Ms.
Hi,
Cassette? Okay,
oh, sorry.
go ahead. Just state your name, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Mike Zervis. As Deb mentioned, I put together some of the material for this. And I would like to add that on Morningside Drive, this area has had homes built up on all the other existing lots. So this is the only remaining lot that is buildable, but doesn't currently have an existing home. And the main reason for this was because there were easements that passed through this property, one from Carriage Hill Road and the other from Birch Lane, which was more recently completed. So, now that those roads are completed and we look at the topography, especially coming down from Carriage Hill Road, there's about a 20-foot drop from the rear of the property to the front. And there is about the existing home that we had placed on this property. It's about 72 feet wide, which is consistent with all the other properties in the neighborhood. So what we're putting there is something that's representative of the neighborhood, something that is oriented in a way that fits the street, and that's going to add value to the neighborhood. So we did sit down with an architect and try to look for alternatives here and ways we could orient the house or really redesign the house in a way that would work. And we did decide to come for a variance because we found that ultimately this was the best solution was to look for relief of 20 feet. I would also like to note that typical easements or typical zoning setbacks in this area for Res A are 20 feet off of the side. We have 25 feet off of one side. We have an easement that cuts across the entire property. So again, that's a distance in excess, far excess of 20 feet. And then we have, instead of the typical 30 feet setback from the front, we're going to be closer to 100 feet. So there are many sides that were well within the setback guidelines. So we're looking for 20 feet off of the rear here. And I think my final point I'd like to make is distance to our...
20 feet or 30?
I'm sorry?
Is it 20 feet or 30?
For Res A, for the front will be about 100 feet setback.
Right, but the rear needs 50.
The rear for Res A is, as far as from the latest I've seen, is 40 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at rural A. My mistake.
No worries. And so I think the last point I want to make here is that our closest proximity is actually to the same neighbor. So there's no change in we're not changing distance to our closest neighbor by increasing this this envelope. And again, I think it fits well with the neighborhood, and it's oriented in such a way that that makes sense. So I appreciate the time, and I'd be happy to answer questions. And thank you, Deb, as well.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to take the opportunity to put up the plan for the public.
Sure.
Okay, so I will put it up right now. Oops. Can you see the plan?
Yes. No, yes.
Yes, great. Thanks for putting that up. So on the plan, you can see the structure that is beyond the current building envelope. Again, the rear setback is 40 feet. You can see the distance from the cul-de-sac from the street, and you can also see 2 easements that cross through the front of the property. So there's limited ability to move the structure forward, and it creates a narrow footprint.
So what's the square footage of this house?
It's about 3,900 square feet currently, which is.
So you could put a smaller footprint house in there and be conforming.
So the challenge is that because the house is oriented in a diagonal way, you actually lose significant square footage. And so it's not just, I'm sorry?
Who created the lot?
So the lot was created, I think Deb can probably speak to that. There's a long history to it.
So my family's been developing Saxon Woods, that complete area, since 1976. So my dad actually installed all of those utilities, and all the roads and everything all throughout Countryway, Morningside, Birch Lane, Saxon Lane, Country, Old Colony. So that's all my dad. So he created that.
Okay. I guess I go back to my last question is why not put a smaller house in? It fits.
So, I mean,
it doesn't need relief. One of the things that we rarely do is grant relief, a variance to put a single family house up.
I think, so there's a couple of things there. Number one is that the size of the house, it's going to be significantly smaller than the existing homes on that street. And so, I think that would create a situation where it's going to be problematic for conforming with the existing neighborhood. But I also want to point out the fact that there's more ability to, when you look at the topography is the real issue here, is that you have a 20-foot drop that goes from the rear of the lot to the front of the lot. And the utilities follow that topography. And so, when you're required to butt up against that utility easement, you don't want to go, obviously, you don't want to be removing material from an area of an easement that would expose the utilities underneath to elements above the frost line. So you have to be conscious of that. And by adding an additional portion of the building envelope, what you can do is you have more flexibility to move the structure and orient the structure in a way that you can avoid that complicated topography in the easement. Topography alone, if there's no utilities underneath, it can be challenging, but to be conscious of that and to make sure that you're maintaining that depth, utility depth is important here. So I think there's a couple of ways to look at it, but ultimately, just putting a smaller structure, it still limits you because you can only position it in certain ways in relation to that street, into that cul-de-sac.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. George.
I have a couple of questions. Looking at the plan, I think if he turned the house a little more on a different angle, he would be able to fit it in that footprint. And also, I want to know what they're going to do to address the slopes and to securing the slope.
The lot, the topography of the lot as it is how it will stay. The slope will not be, it will not be disturbed.
Mr. George?
So is that slope run parallel with the easement?
So the lot basically sits flat, coming down from Carriage Hill Road, the backyard of what would be, I believe, 7 Carriage Hill Road, is very steep, falling into
Yeah,
the lot.
I went to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. So, ideally, I believe he's asking for 20 feet relief from one line and adding it to the back line. And then the house fits. And it's in accordance with all the rest of the structures in the neighborhood. It's no bigger, it's no smaller. And it's just the random lot that was left.
Ms. Cassette?
I'm struggling a little bit. It is 18 feet of relief we're being asked to give. That's quite a lot. I'd feel more comfortable if it was reoriented a bit to be just 5 feet, or so this is significant. I don't have anything in front of me that shows the topography. I tried to look at the GIS a little bit. So actually, Bernie, are you able to bring that plan up again? That shows the existing and proposed. I'm looking at it too, but it would be good for it.
Yes, I am. 1 minute.
Okay.
Or hold on 1 second. Oops. Hold on, it got away from me.
And while you're doing that, what I struggle with subdivisions like this that have this last lot left at the end. Had it been submitted with the lot lines slightly different to make this work within the zoning setbacks, it should have been done then. So I have seen these things come before us before, and I struggle with it. Again, it's 18 feet of relief. So I have to hear comment from others too. And then Bernie, I don't know if you're still trying.
No, Lisa, I can do it now. So hold on 1 second. Can you see it?
It's getting there. Yep. It is a self-created hardship.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a few questions?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Mulcahy.
So, Lisa, I'm having a hard time, and apologies if you can hear my daughter in the background. I'm having a hard time figuring out the topography. So I understand that there's a slope from the adjacent street from Carriage Hill Road down into this lot. Does that slope, and that's my cat, does that slope actually affect in any way the positioning of the house based on the 2 proposed envelopes?
Mike,
Sure. So in the proposed envelope, which is an extension of about 20 feet, that orientation works. And what happens is that if we try to rotate this house in a way that fits the property, we're abutting directly against this topography. And so that's where it becomes problematic, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So I can understand, at first pass, it looks like, a rotation of X amount of degrees will solve the problem. But, from a aesthetic standpoint, it is going to look a little off, but I think a bigger concern here is that now we have to directly abut this topography. We want to be careful about drainage. We want to be cautious about, maintaining this slope, and, with the house directly abutted against this steep topography, that's where the challenge comes in.
Right.
So I think that's if that answers your question,
Well,
Peter.
just, and apologies if I'm just sort of missing something. So it's,
Sure.
is the slope north-south or west-east?
The slope is west-east.
Peter,
Okay.
if I may, I can, I'm going to try to present the GIS slope that we have for
Yes,
this.
thank
Okay.
you, thank you. Because what the appellant is, there's a lot of other stuff in the application, but the key is the hardship of what I'm hearing, topography, but none of the materials we've been given
Actually show that.
explains that enough to me. So that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Here we go. Are you seeing the?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
And so maybe with this sort of as our common reference, can you just kind of, and I'm not trying to drag this out, I just want to make sure I understand what the issue is.
Yeah. So you can see this. So one caveat here is that this map is actually, it's actually adding the neighbor's property to it. So there's a small triangular parcel there that we had to go to the assessor's office to correct, and they indicated this wouldn't be updated, but the topography is still accurate. And what you can see is from west to east, there's a drop of about 20 feet. And so what we're trying to do is orient the house in a way where we can slope this topography in a way that's conducive to fitting a home. We can control the drainage, and we can make sure that the utilities are not disrupted. So that's the design that we have. We try to make other designs work. I've really spent a long time with an architect trying to orient the house in a way that works well. But again, a simple rotation creates this topography hardship here because we have to abut directly against this slope.
Yeah, but I keep coming back to that this is really a self-created hardship. It's you made these lots initially, and this is what you're dealt with, and now you need a variance to use one.
Well, I think one of the important things here is that, the intent was to have the rear of the lot as the southern lot line. And I realize that, this isn't a discussion as part of this group.
You can't swap lot lines, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that's why I didn't bring it up, and that's why it's in the package but not discussed here. But, again, if we look at the intent of, if you follow the curvature of the cul-de-sac, opposite and furthest removed lot line seems to be, when I talked to the architect, his interpretation and the intent from Deb was to be the southern lot line. And, I can understand different interpretations. So, obviously that discussion is maybe not be, something that can be changed here. But again, it wasn't intended to be a self-induced kind of situation. It was actually intended for the southern lot line to be the rear. And so this is how all this came about.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we all wanted to say something. I made that comment initially, and this looks different to me. It does not look self-inflicted like I've seen some others. So that was a great explanation, and thank you, Bernie, for showing the topography.
Okay. Ms. Lynch?
Yeah, I'm struggling as well. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and this is almost of Morningside Drive. Chairman is concerned about this being sort of self-inflicted, if you will. So I'm really having a hard time with the whole decision making on this. I can imagine why it would be important for them to get this relief, but I also see it as somewhat of a self-made issue that we're having to work through. So those are my comments.
Okay. Mr. Cahill, was there anyone in attendance that wished to express an interest on this matter?
Yes. My name is Orlando. I'm at 127 North. And my question to you is, because I'm a little confused and I'm not on the video chat, so I'm following you guys through Google Maps and whatnot. Everything that I've been hearing, it seems like my house is close to this, but the address doesn't match up because you got the same Morningside Drive, and how far is that from 127? Because they also have a building pretty much right on top of 127 North.
Hello, Deb Harrington here. I used to live at 127 North Street. Okay,
Hi, Deb.
Excuse me, who's speaking?
this is Deb Harrington.
Okay, hold on one second. Mr. Cahill?
Orlando.
Yes.
No, Mr. Can you?
Yes.
Where is Mr. Orlando's house situated in relation to this one?
Hi, Mr. Orlando.
No, hold on a second. I'm talking to Mr. Cahill.
Oh, sorry.
127 North Street, I'm looking it up now. It is 3 lots to the south from here.
Okay.
From 31.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if it was, because I know they're building right behind us as well. I didn't know if this was one of it, but that's fine. I'm sorry.
127 North Street is on the corner of Northland Road and North Street where the two intersect. So there's 28 Birch and 29 Birch in between the lot we're discussing this evening and this gentleman's house.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have no further comment.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to express an opinion on this? Mr. Cahill, did anyone, do you know of anyone?
I have not received any written or phoned in comments for this project.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it's Lisa again. I just wanted to add one more comment. So I initially struggled with this type of decision, as I said, and wondered if it was self-created. After seeing the GIS and the topography, and then again, the whole subdivision plan, I think it's unlikely at the time that this was approved that anyone would have imagined that lot to not have a home in it. I could be wrong, but if we look at that again, I think everyone intended there to be some lot. There would have been some struggle because of the topography. So I don't think the appellant, created this situation all in and of itself. And so the variance they're asking for is, again, 18 feet, and I'm more convinced after seeing the topography that the hardship has to keep the orientation as it's been shown. So I'm less against it than I was before. So I just wanted to, for anyone else also struggling with it, I just wanted to make those comments.
Yeah, I still see it as self-created in the sense that this was developed, this is a lot that was made. The prevailing way things were done 30 years ago may have been more lenient in terms of how things were, whether variances were granted, whether, how things were dealt with. We're not in that same era. And again, I do see it as self-created. Anyone else wish to be heard?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
I still think if they use a little imagination, they can make that house fit within that footprint. It might not look as pleasingly from the street, but I think they could still make that house fit.
Okay.
Or a smaller one.
Right. Okay. Does anyone wish to make a motion? Ms. Cassette?
Whoop, couldn't find my mute button.
Oh.
So is there any more discussion? Any other members? If not, I make a motion to approve Morningside. I don't have the address right in front of me. Hold on. Yes, I do. 31 Morningside Drive, variance of 22 feet instead of 40 feet setback.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Run through the list. Mr. George,
No.
Ms. Cassette,
Aye.
Mr. Mulcahy,
Aye.
Ms. Lynch,
No.
and I also vote no. Motion is denied by a vote of 3-2. Next hearing is to hear the appeal of Peter L. and Corazon C. Castaldi, 9193 Maple Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass. For a special permit to the town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under section 4-B to add a deck on the westerly side of the house and a roof overhang on the easterly side of the house on an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 91-93 Maple Ave. The subject permit is the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 21, plot 219000. Mr. Mulcahy.
Mr. Chair, I have to recuse myself from this one as an abutter as well.
Okay. Is Mr. Armenti here?
I am still here.
Okay, good to know. Mr. Cataldi, please tell us what you plan on doing.
Thank you very much. My wife and I are looking to make very small changes, basically to make our home more livable for an elderly couple. That includes myself. There will be a small roof. We're having an architect make sure that it's consistent with the house style to avoid us stepping out onto a slippery driveway. That will be at the front of the house. Probably will not generally be noticed. The back of the house has a deck that was built about 25 years ago by my wife and me, by the way. And that really has to be redone. So Roberto Lala was going to build out to spec and use materials so that 25 years from now, it will still be completely usable. If there are questions, I'll try to address them.
Mr. George.
None at this time.
Ms. Cassette.
I just wanted to make clear that the deck that's going to be replaced, is it the same footprint and dimensions?
Yes, there is. I want to answer that completely right. The true answer is yes. In order to make it fit better at the back of the house, we may move it 1 foot to the left, but I mean, that difference will not be noticed by anyone except my wife and me.
Okay, and
So-
it doesn't affect that setback anyway, if it's moving toward the left.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for full transparency, I would like to, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I would like to, for the public's sake, put up the plan. Can everyone see the plan?
Yeah, the top half, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions about the plan?
Nope.
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 And again, this is a special permit. The conformity, non-conformities are not being changed. Anyone have any questions? Mr. George?
Nope.
Ms. Cassette?
No.
Mr. Mulcahy? I'm sorry, Ms. Lynch?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Armenti?
No questions.
Okay, anyone in attendance express an interest in being heard on this matter? Okay, Mr. Cahill, are you aware of anyone that had expressed an interest?
No, I have not.
Okay, can I get a motion? Mr. George?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second? Ms. Cassette?
Second.
I almost said all in favor. Mr. George? Mr. George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Cassette?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Mr. Armenti?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Motion passes unanimously. And that concludes our public hearing portion of the meeting, I believe. Mr. Cahill, old
Yes.
business, new business.
Correct. So we had a request from a prior appellant. I'm going to pull up the decision now. It was for, I'll go up to the top. Can everyone see the decision?
Yes.
Okay, so this is for 158 South Quinsigamon. This was a decision that was rendered last fall. I believe it was October, November. The applicant, when it came time to pull building permits, there was some confusion between planning, the building department, and the appellant about what exactly was going on. It turns out the decision wasn't written quite as clear as it was discussed at the meeting last fall. So we went back, we reviewed the minutes, and we reviewed the video. And as you can see here, what was actually said is what you can see here in the writing. The original decision had the writing here that was crossed out in red from the words, switch the existing uses of garage and single family between the two existing structures. What was actually intended and what was said at the meetings, and you can review the minutes and the video if you haven't already, was that the intent was to switch the existing use of a garage to a single family and allow the existing family dwelling to be partially demolished up into the first floor, with the remainder of the structure, to be used as a recreational building with living area. So the remainder of that is just a repetition of that language. So this vote is to approve the modification of that language without changing the decision to results.
Which is basically just making the decision conforming with what we had discussed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion? Anyone have an issue with this?
No, I don't.
Ms. Cassette?
No issue, no issue.
Mr. Mulcahy?
I'll say.
You're okay? And Ms. Lynch?
I'm fine, thank you. All good.
Okay. I basically think that's a unanimous vote that we're okay with this. Consent of the board it has been given.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
Okay. Any
And,
other oral business?
That was it. I just wanted to thank all of the board members tonight and all the residents in town tuning in. This is new for everyone, so we really appreciate everyone's patience. I think it's gone pretty well. If you have any comments from home, hopefully good ones, or advice you want to share, please feel free to send me an email. There'll be a planning board meeting on Thursday night at 7 p.m. and we'll be doing the same thing through Google Hangouts, and it will be broadcast on Shrewsbury Media Connection as well, and all great local TV channels where you can find them. So feel free to tune in, and thank you again, everyone.
Okay, can I get a final motion, Mr. George? Final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Ms. Cassette?
Second.
Mr. George? How
Hi.
do you vote?
Adjourn.
I say aye.
Mr. Mulcahy?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
And meeting is now adjourned.
Goodbye.